Over the last few days and weeks, you may have noticed that a massive blast from the past has finally been re-rated, after causing controversy in 1.9 and 2.0. Unnerfed Fexty was the mysterious creator of Spectro's second serious level following effort. It was short but extremely difficult, and at the time of its release in 1.9 and the brief period it was rated for, it was the hardest demon in the game, being harder than Cataclysm. Unfortunately, RobTop caught wind of this level and it was unrated despite not unrating effort. In an attempt to get the level re-rated, Spectro nerfed it down to around about a hard demon level, and after that, for a long time in 2.0, it kind of fell out of favour. About 16 months ago, Unnerfed Fexty was re-verified legitimately, and everyone had hoped this time it would have been rated into a top 10 extreme demon, but it never was. Now, with the sudden increase in interest to the level, RobTop has re-rated Skyjack's Unnerfed legitimately verified version out of the blue, and now Fexty sits at the lower end of the top 50, but still triumphing above every Spectro level and Super Knight levels that were inspired by it. Today, as we've been doing in this new style of video of mine, we're going to be taking a look at the history of the level briefly, then we'll be discussing how hard it is and how hard it was for the times it was relevant, and then we'll be speculating on what may have come around it had it been re-rated sooner. You may think on the surface that Fexty doesn't have much of a history and wouldn't really affect much in the community, but many factors, including its striking coincidences to another level that was re-verified at a similar time, lead it to have a surprising amount of potential effect on the community at the relevant time. So let's jump straight in. Fexty was Spectro's second major level, following on from Effort, by the mysterious creator of Spectro. Spectro's levels were unique, unusual, original, and above all highly buggy, poorly playtested, and very inconsistent. A negative gameplay feature that prevailed thanks to Spectro's hacking of all the levels. Just for the record, we don't have any definitive proof that Spectro hacked his levels, but there is a 99% chance he hacked all his major levels. Effort was rated, and for a very short period, Fexty was too. It received some coverage when the old community veteran Rio Tio made a practice cut run of the level showcasing it for the first time, including the menacing wave paths. I cannot be sure, but I'm pretty sure Fexty was boosted to the top of the demons list for a very brief period too. However, RobTop soon realised Fexty was hacked and unrated it, however he left Effort alone, and this came at a time when hacked extreme demons were shaping the future of GD in the form of Cataclysm mainly, so I guess you could say that Fexty was simply caught by RobTop on a bad day, hence it was unrated. The first major coincidence to talk about here, which I will revisit later in the video, is Fexty's striking similarities to Sukoop and Hell. You'll recall, if you watched my GD Theories episode 8, that there was speculation for a brief period that Spectro could have potentially been Nubas's alter ego. While this is now very unlikely, Fexty and Sukoop and Hell shared a lot of weird coincidences to drive this. They both came out at a relatively similar time, they were both quite short for extreme demons at the time, and they both stood to be number 1 at the demons list at the time. Later on, Nubas also somewhat adopted Spectro's building style for his level Cosmic Rage. Looking back, it was all a spooky coincidence and not really anything sinister. Spectro was keen to get Fexty re-rated, and so Spectro released a new nerfed version of Fexty that was dialed down to a very hard demon level at the time. Another coincidence here is that it was released at the same time as the nerfed, legitimate version of Lezikov that was re-verified by Lucio X, a level that heavily draws from Spectro's levels for inspiration. Soon after, Sugayesta beat the nerfed version, as Stormfly followed suit, and there were calls to re-rate the new version of Fexty, but unfortunately it never was. Towards the end of summer 2016, a player named Skyjax picked up the unnerfed version and started practicing it. He got very far, into the 90% fails, but needed that extra kick to drive him all the way. Come the final quarter of 2016, I released my popular and highly requested Maps from Hell episode on Spectro's levels, and the renewed interest seemed to drive Skyjax across the line, and finally on October the 8th 2016 he did it. A magnificent 60Hz achievement, and a top 10 demon for sure. However, it was yet again ignored by RobTop for a full year and then some. Recently, Diamond Splash has been ticking off the Spectro levels from his ever-increasing demon collection, and Fexty was on his radar, and the renewed attention has finally seen RobTop re-rate the level. It now sits at 45th on the demons list, and several players have beaten it, from end level to Sunix and beyond that. However, the question has to be asked, what might have changed if this level was given to RobTop's attention sooner, and had the chance to sit in the top 10 of the list rather than in the bottom 40? Well, we'll cover that in a short while. First of all, let's look at where it would have placed on the list for his relative times. Right now, Fexty places 45th on the Demons list, but this was at the very least 16 months overdue. Had it been rated when Skyjacks beat the level, or had it stayed rated in 1.9, it would be a much different story. One thing to note here is that it would have been above the Hell Factory if not for the place re-evaluation of the Team N2 level that happened this week. So, considering this, we could use Wayback Machine like I did for the Demons List history video in order to get a snapshot of the list around the time it was verified. There's not an actual October snapshot we can use, but there is one for September, and the only other change between then and November to the top 10 was a Thanatos if I remember correctly, and that happened after. Unnerfed Fexty has now been placed below Plasma Pulse 3, but at this point it wouldn't have been below the Hell Factory. Therefore, in 2016 at the time it was verified, we could safely assume that it would have placed 8th on the Demons list. Quite a big difference between where it is now, due to the long gap between the events of it getting released and it getting rated. At the time, there were many people, including my at the time clueless noob self, who were calling for it to be put on par with Phobos, but I believe this came about due to level hysteria, a concept that was well demonstrated and explained in my Red World video. It was verified at a similar time to its spiritual cousin Sucoup in Hell, yet another weird coincidence these two levels share. One thing worth mentioning is that Fexty's inconsistent, buggy gameplay style has been blown out of the water by demons like Erebus and Devil Vortex, so maybe Fexty would have been proportionally higher as we weren't used to that gameplay style back then. That being said, I doubt it would have gone higher than 8th. As for the original version, the Espectro version, well, if that had stayed rated, it would have been number 1 until Bloodbath came out, although it probably would have fallen down the list faster as people would have gotten used to it and its gameplay. Something else to consider is the Hell Factory. I've already explained that the Hell Factory would have initially started below, but interestingly, it also suffered the same kind of mass overhyping Red World faced, and at one point it was above Chronicle Depression on the Demons list. If Fexty had stayed rated from 1.9, it likely would have been ousted for second by the Hell Factory at the massively acclaimed time of release, so in this case might have been below the Hell Factory over 2 years ahead of its time. Now we've considered all that, let's talk about what might have been under these scenarios. Nowadays, the moderate speed big players are brushing the level aside would have you believe that Fexty was probably vastly overrated for a lot of its time. However, because of the stigma, had either of the unnerfed releases been rated earlier, it might have had more of a profound effect on the community. Let's start with the unnerfed version remaining rated from 1.9. If it had stayed rated, it might have inspired a few levels here and there, and it may have inspired some players to become successful GD YouTubers for the early victors. I know I continually talk about this, but as we know, hacked extreme demons do a lot for the game. So while it is incredibly hard to forecast what effect this hack level would have had over 2.5 years ago, it stands to reason that it may have had some more significance than it has now. Onto the Skyjacks version, and the effects it might have had start to become slightly more tangible. As we've discussed, the level has a lot of similarities with Sucoup in Hell. Sucoup in Hell was legitimately re-verified by Truster around the same time Skyjacks re-verified Fexty. And given the similarities between the two, we can use what actually happened with Sucoup in Hell as a model of what Fexty could have inspired. Sucoup in Hell inspired Kenos, so perhaps this medium length 1.9 hacked extreme demon might have inspired his own 2.0 extended and rebirthed sequel of a much harder difficulty. Also, Sucoup in Hell really kickstarted the career of Combined, an instrumental player in big mega collabs and extreme demons now. Perhaps an early unnerfed Fexty victor would have gone on to receive more fame and recognition. If it had inspired a sequel, it may have inspired a sequel under this inconsistent speed demon style gameplay that we've begun to see in levels like Devil Vortex, so perhaps Fexty could have inspired some more levels like that. If it had been re-rated, perhaps the Spectro would have stuck around longer and we would have had more of Spectro levels, e.g. maybe he would have taken on his failed collab part named Zeltrion and actually made it into a level, which is something I would have loved to see, as I really think Zeltrion had the potential to be a Spectro's best work if it were finished and extended. Whatever the case, we could assume that if RobTop hadn't left it 16 months to rate this quirky little extreme demon, then way more could have come beneath it as a result. But that's just my opinion. However, it is still a problem with RobTop that seems to stem from him yet again ignoring good levels. You'll all have your own ideas of what might have been after this video, and I'd love to hear them. So if you have any ideas, feel free to pop them in the comments as always, and I'll read all of them. And we'll see if we can get some discussions going. Anyway, that's all from me, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please help it out by smashing that like button, and if you're new to the channel and enjoyed the video, I'd love to have you as part of the sub base if you would like to subscribe. Thanks a lot guys, I'll see you all soon.